they are trying to get rid of $50 to $100 billion worth of dollars a month. And that means by the end of next year, they won't have any anymore. And I just written an article about it. It's coming out on Wednesday in the China section. And this is not going to solve their problem. They've done the same thing that they've done in the United States and other countries as well, major countries. And they're going to find that in order to feed that monster of liquidity, they're going to have to keep on increasing the amount of money and credit that they have to make available to keep the engine running. And they get the engine running at a very high pitch. One of the unfortunate things is it's really hard to figure out all of the internals in China because they, like the United States and many other countries, they lie about their figures, their statistics. You really can't tell what's going on. I've read a couple of people who say that they didn't have 6 or 8% or 9% growth. They had negative growth. So you don't know, but the point is they may be able to produce lots of things in great numbers, but they got to have a market. And the world market is getting smaller, particularly in Canada, the United States, and in Great Britain, as well as Europe. And so, you know, the old saying is, who do I sell to? And that's a problem.
Well, you know, I think one of the most interesting things is the Federal Reserve, certainly the Treasury, has to half a trillion dollars between now and the end of September. How much are they going to have to come up with, you know, in the way of money to meet this massive deficit we have? It's about $1.8 trillion. And you pointed out in your latest forecaster that certainly there are a lot of people buying American bonds, Treasury bonds, Treasury bills, but a lot of them are foreign banks that are buying the Treasury bills with American dollars that we've sent over there to the foreign banks so they'll come in and buy the bonds to give the impression that there's a market for them and keep the interest rates down, but that really isn't true. It's our money we're sending overseas to these banks to buy our bonds with, bonds that they wouldn't buy ordinarily because they know that certainly they're going to be redeemed in worthless dollars down the line. We want to sort of expand on that idea.
Well, I think you really covered it. And what's going to happen is the Fed evidently has told them that we're going to buy them back from you. So if that's the case, and let's say hypothetically they spent all $500 billion that they swapped, because what they did is give them their own currency, give the U.S. give the Fed U.S. currency, their own currency, excuse me. It's confusing enough as it is. Their currency for dollars, okay? The Fed uses those currencies to keep the dollar up by selling those 5 foreign currencies into the market. On the other hand, the other parties, the other central banks, the 5 of them, they're sitting on dollars. And so the Fed is having them spend the dollars to buy treasuries at auction. And that's why the figures have gone up for foreign central bank participation in the auctions. And it went up from like 35, 38% into the 60s. And that's what tipped me off. And so they're going to continue to do that. My guess is that the Fed is secretly monetizing $30 to $50 billion worth of treasuries a month.
And, of course, this it massively expands the amount of money out there, decreases the value of the currency. Down the line, we will have inflation, not for the time being, because, of course, so much money has been lost and you're not seeing the inflation. Down the line, why there's going to be a terrible price to pay for issuing all this money with no backing behind it. Worthless money begets more worthless money. Give us a call if you have a question or comment. Well, this is Dr. Stan. Our guest is Bob Chapman. Our telephone number is 1-888-24-LIBERTY. 1-888-24-LIBERTY or 464-8295. If you'd like to talk to Bob, the deficit for this year is going to be, which the year ends in the September the 30th. That's just a little over, 6 weeks away. The deficit for this year will be $1.8 trillion. The deficit last year was about $400 billion, and the deficit this year is over 4 times as much. Now, not to say that the Bush administration isn't at least partly responsible for the problems we have, but they're all controlled by the same people. Until you understand, the Trilateral Commission controlled the Bush administration, and they controlled the Obama administration, and they've controlled every administration since Jimmy Carter and Walter Mondale, both members of the Trilateral Commission. Every president and or vice president of the United States since between 1976 and the year 2008 was either a member of David Rockefeller's Trilateral Commission or the vice president, and perhaps in many instances both were members of the Trilateral Commission. Let's go to Russell, who's calling from Wisconsin, but it's about time the American people understood it's all a scam. We go to the polls every 4 years, and we vote for the candidates of their choice. Go right ahead, Russell. Do you have a question or comment for our guest?
Yes, I do. Could you comment on the latest CPI numbers? I understand that it's lower than the last year's numbers.
Could you comment on that, Bob?
Yeah, that's true. The problem is that you can't trust the numbers. We don't know what it is. I mean, inflation's come down. It's probably now somewhere, my guess is around 4 to 5%. But they're not going to admit that. They lie about everything. Every statistic that comes out of Washington is untruthful. And it's CPI, PPI, and then the unemployment figures. I mean, 9.4% when it's really 20.8%. I mean, there's no comparison. And they're arrogant. They don't care what you think. And so the inflation figures have come down because of deleveraging and also the slowdown in our economy as well as the world economy, which affects it as well. And so the numbers should go down, but not to where they're talking about. And the other nations are doing the same thing. I just mentioned about the Chinese. All over Europe, they're lying about their figures. And, there are probably some governments that tell the truth. I just don't know who they are.
Okay, anything else, Russell?
That's about it. The reason why I called is because I work at the post office, and our contract allows us to get COLA increases twice a year, but it's tied to the CPI. And if it goes up above a certain level, then we get a COLA increase. But if it doesn't, if it goes down, goes below the last time there was a CPI release from last year, we don't get any COLA increase, and a lot of people are really worried about that.
Well, they ought to be worried about it, and certainly the economy is continuing to contract. Now, Bob thinks it may level off the end of this year, but there's going to be some real problems probably getting into the year 2010 and 2011 and 2012. Telling people that we're going to end this recession any time now, maybe the end of this year, and they're simply lying. They know it's not true. They just want the public to know, and I think that we're going to see some very difficult times. I think a lot more people are going to lose their jobs, and even the Postal Service, which has always been, very, very stable. Certainly, they're talking about cutting back on mail delivery to do 5 days a week instead of 6 days a week, and they're going to find more and more ways to actually start laying off people, I'm afraid. Anyway, thanks for calling, Russell.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Let's go to Jim calling from West Virginia. Again, our number, 1-888-24-LIBERTY, 1-888-24-LIBERTY, or 464-8295. Hi, Jim. Do you have a question or comment?
This is something I've wondered about. When I was a teenager, my parents made me read Adam Smith, Wealth of Nations. And when I was in my 20s, I read where David Rockefeller wanted to put us into a cashless society. if there were a currency devaluation, and I can imagine saying, oh, the currency's no good, we can't print enough new, do you think they'd stick us into saying, well, you can use your debit card or your credit card? Do you think that's possible? And I'll just be quiet and listen.
What are your thoughts, Bob?
Well, I think it is possible. Whether it's probable or not remains to be seen. I don't think we have an imminent devaluation crisis, although I think that the dollar will go down against other major currencies, like in the USDX, before the year is out, maybe before the end of October, in a big way. But if there's going to be devaluation, a new currency, it's got to come anywhere between 6 months and 2.5 years, and it probably will come. But I don't think that they're going to go to a new currency. They may
Hold that thought.